Welcome to the place of rest, where our aim is to give you language that helps you displace the growing confusion, chaos, and dis-ease of our times. My name is Jonathan Boyce, and it's my pleasure to bring to you today's episode. Virginia and Martin Pytela discuss Martin's own healing journey and how it led to his learning about metabolic typing and Martin's 4 primary causes of disease. We hope you enjoy today's conversation.
Martin, welcome. I'm thankful that we can have this conversation today.
My pleasure. Happy to do it.
I'm thankful that you were able to join us because obviously we have a health crisis, mental and physical health crisis. We have a medical health crisis. And the whole system is imploding. And it's not just the medical system. We see it happening in economic, political, and all these different spheres. We often talk about that in our podcast. As you well know, we're about displacing confusion, chaos, and dis-ease. And you have an amazing program. So I'd like you to tell us about it because I think it is practical. I think it is accessible. And I think it's something that can be transformative for people listening. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, sure. Let's talk about my story. I started out as a computer science and business administration major and innocently got into a medical intervention. Mine was a dentist's office. I got 12 mercury amalgam fillings. I didn't understand. I was told silver amalgam fillings. I didn't think much of that. I just didn't have it in my head that I was going to get loaded with mercury, which then, of course, that's one of the most toxic things that you can put in your body. And myself, with my genetics, which are somewhat poor at detoxification, it was a perfect storm. So I went from a very strong 25-year-old to a very decrepit 30-year-old. That was a fairly steep road down, and I had, the symptoms included things like plantar fasciitis, carpal tunnel syndrome, back falling apart, headaches, backaches. It's just a long series of health crises that just piled on, so that by about the age 35, I decided that I had enough. I have tried the orthopedic surgeon and the general practitioner and the chiropractor and the naturopath, and all of that simply showed that the entire medical field as we knew it was focusing on symptoms. Not one of these people was asking, what is the cause of this body falling apart? And so as a business analyst, I finally put on my business analyst hat on and started studying. And I read a lot of books. This was before internet, so 1980s. And I figured it out. And the answer was not one of these professionals was looking at the cause or for the cause. So once I figured that out, it didn't take me more than a year to figure out that it was the mercury and that I had to get it out of my body. And then I found how to do it and found some people who actually are doing this functional medicine. It's out there. It's in the open. It's ready to be found if you're looking for it. But it's well hidden because the mainstream, the mainstream medical, but mainstream news and information channels and all of that is controlled by a mindset that is completely shutting off that way of thinking.
Yep. Metabolic typing. Tell us a little bit about that.
Right. So I got into that in about 2010. By then I had started my health coach practice. And it's a discovery. Again, one of those wonderful technologies that are out there but not readily promoted. Metabolic typing is a method put together by William Wolcott that shows that based on your genetics, you will have one of the 2 systems dominant, one being oxidizing, or one type is the oxidizer, the other type is called autonomic. It's sort of like being left-handed or right-handed. you have to have a certain preference. Well, the oxidizer is alkalized by fats and proteins and acidified by carbohydrates. The autonomic is the other way around, is alkalized by carbohydrates and acidified by fats and protein.
How can a person know which they are?
It's through the symptoms. It's how you react, because alkalinity shows up as getting up later, procrastinating, fairly pleasant but lazy. Further into more alkalinity, you get despondence, and way deep into alkalinity, you get depression. The more acidic person usually gets up early, is quite active, is go-getter, get things done, but tends to be impatient and abrasive and in extreme, quite angry. Like road rage is a perfect example of an over-acidic event. So you can either direct it externally, like outward, and you will be raging at people or the world, or you can direct it inward, which would be anxiety. Like you would be fretting either about the future, as in what all could go wrong, or about the past, all the stuff that you did do wrong and should have done differently. So you have now the choices, right? You're either in balance, in the middle, or you're drifting out into the extreme.
Can you describe in each case you just mentioned, beginning with the alkaline dominant, you said that person has a hard time getting out of bed.
Well, they tend to sleep in.
Yeah.
I mean, the extreme expression of it is they pull the sheet over their head and say, I'm not getting out of bed today at all.
What can that person practically do? An alkaline dominant.
Right. So what you have there is you need to figure out how foods affect you specifically, because if you're an oxidizer, the food that will make you more alkaline is fat. If you're a autonomic, the food that will make you more alkaline is carbohydrate. This would be best explained on an example of a cocktail party. Alcohol is a fine example of carbohydrate. So as you serve drinks, first drink, nothing much happens. People are just getting jovial. Second drink, you start seeing the dominances. So the oxidizers will be getting louder and more confrontational. And on a third or fourth drink, they will be picking fights, either verbal or maybe even physical. They will be just really aggressive and not willing to compromise. And the overly alkaline people, they will first start oversharing. They will be very emotional. First, they kind of just get loose, start talking more. But then they overshare, start sharing personal histories that they wish they didn't. And then they start crying about it, and then they fall asleep. So the oxidizers will essentially want to party on, keep going all day long, whereas the autonomics, they will just be falling asleep.
I love that. I love that because, as a matter of fact, I want to thank you so much for your approach. It's so practical. It's so practical. You make everything so accessible. I think it's fantastic. If I'm an oxidizer,
right,
a person that, for example, what if I don't drink? How would it show up in my life?
Yeah, carbohydrate in any form, right? I just use the alcohol as a common example that you can easily study if you're just in the basic common society.
How does it show up in carbohydrates?
Yeah, you can eat a banana or drink 2 shots of orange juice. You will have the same effect. It's a whole bunch of carbs. So if you happen to be an oxidizer, there are 2 ends. Visualize it as a continuum. You have on one end, you will be waking up overly acidic, on the other end, overly alkaline. And so if you're the oxidizer, the way to get out of over-alkalinity is with carbohydrates. But if you are already too acidic, taking more carbohydrates will make it only worse. So you need to actually eat fats. So we have these 2 different extremes, and you need to act, or you need to work with your body type to bring yourself into more flexibility rather than less.
Well, everybody listening right now can identify with being an oxidizer or more alkaline dominant just by what you described.
Visualize it differently. Think of it like a space, like a square space, and you have top half of the page, bottom half of the page, left side of the page, right side of the page. So you want to be somewhere in the center of the page because that's where you have most flexibility. You will be balanced most of the time. So if you end up in the top side of the page, those would be the autonomics, and bottom side, that would be the oxidizer. So if you are in the top left corner, you're now known as the sympathetic, which means you're waking up acidic and you're in the autonomic state of genetics. So if you eat fats in the morning, you're going to get even more angry and more anxious and more ornery. Whereas if you start your day with, say, a fruit salad or something starchy, you will actually push yourself back to normal, as in not agitated, out of the extreme of the fight or flight, back toward flexible.
That's amazing. Can one meal have that kind of an effect?
Yeah, 20 to 30 minutes is all it takes. You just start metabolizing the food you ingest, and it's happening right there.
That's fantastic.
So now you can have people who will screw up every meal. So you will have them swinging back and forth between depression and anxiety. These were known as bipolar, right? And so some people are more stable than others. For some people, they are really resilient and their center is quite large.
Right.
Other people are more sensitive and their center is quite small. So it will take more care to get it right.
So number one thing for our listening audience is right now, take a second, take a minute, and write down, am I an oxidizer or do I tend to be heavy on alkaline?
Well, so you're mixing the two things together, right? And this is the difficult part for people to understand. Any one of us can be either overly alkaline or overly acidic.
Right.
An overly acidic person is in an anxious state, fight or flight.
Mm-hmm.
An overly alkaline person is in the depressed, parasympathetic sleep, right? Rest, repair, digest, which is good. It's desirable. We want to be slightly alkaline. We want to be slightly in the rest, repair, digest, aging slowly, as opposed to the anxious, aging rapidly, fight or flight, wired and tired at the same time.
Right.
So any one of us can be there. The challenge with the society is that we don't think that there are two types. So think of it like left-handed, right-handed,
mm-hmm.
or blue-eyed, brown-eyed.
Mm-hmm.
You're one or the other. So if you are made alkaline by carbs, then push it all the way with carbs until you're too alkaline. So you would want to do a test. Let's just say that you will eat a banana
mm-hmm.
and then wait 20 minutes and see, did it make me calmer or did it make me more nervous?
Mm-hmm.
And then you do a flip test. You do a fat test, like let's just say a spoonful of coconut oil right off the spoon.
Mm-hmm.
And that will push you in one of the two directions. It will be either more calming or more making you more nervous.
Okay, so that's a good test.
Yeah, that's all you have to do.
That's it.
Yeah,
I like it. No, it makes perfect sense. It's very reasonable. It's very accessible.
Mm-hmm.
If we could move into the 4 causes of disease that you discuss.
Right. Yeah, on the physical, disease, as we know it, is caused primarily in the emotional layer. Right? Like,
yes, it is.
Like, I would say that 80% of the cause I would look for is in the emotional. I have 4 words to try and classify what we need to take care of. And these are toxicity, malnutrition, stagnation, and trauma. So the trauma comes in the emotional world. And most of us pick stuff up along the way. There could be intergenerational stuff that we inherit from grandparents, parents, the society we grew up in. And then the first 6 years of our lives, before our consciousness develops, before we have actually conscious control over what happens, we accept most everything from around us literally. So we end up with all kinds of concepts stuck in our subconscious that will drive our lives. So growing up in an insecure environment, parents, alcoholics or abusers of some sort, that will create all kinds of heritage that you're packing around that's going to trigger you into malfunctions.
Exactly, which makes us toxic, especially with compounding stressors,
Right.
normal life stressors.
Yes. Yeah. So all of that should be addressed in whatever way. I mean, you have some really wonderful ways to help people with that. And it's really important that that be considered in the complexity of it.
Right. Which do you do first?
Well, you're riding a bicycle and you're having to fix it while you're riding it.
Yeah.
There's no first, right?
Depends where the leak is. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let's try and do the bicycle example. If I'm trying to make the wheel stop wobbling, I will find one of the 36 wires that are spikes or whatever they are. There's the loosest. I will have to tighten that. So I will pull the biggest bulge closer to the center, which will reveal the next bulge, which is somewhere opposite of that. So I have to keep going around the wheel, finding the tension and making it right. I mean, that's how you fix a wheel. So when you're trying to fix a life, you need to know all of it and look after all of it. So, for example, with toxicity, the industrial age, as we know it, arriving in the late 1700s, and then first with coal, then with petroleum products, then with plastics, then with herbicides, pesticides, and all of that, there's a rising tide of more toxicity in the environment.
Yeah. Disease, and it correlates with the disease state. What's number 2?
So that was the toxicity. We have to remove all the toxins, whether they are heavy metals or volatile organic compounds or the plastics and whatever. You have to clean up your life. You will never get better until you take these blocking factors that are blocking the natural expression of your homeostatic system, holding you in balance.
So good. Spiritually, emotionally, physically. These are universal principles you're discussing.
Yeah,
They're universal
totally.
principles. You got to clean up the
So we're now on
environment.
the physical side of it, right? So toxicity is stuff that should not be in you or in your environment. You have to get rid of it in physical sense. So you need to be drinking clean water. You need to be breathing clean air. You need to be eating foods that are not poisoned. And whatever poisons are already within you, they need to come out. So for that, we have things like zeolite and humic acid, fulvic acid, all kinds of binders to help the body to detoxify itself. Then the second one that I have on the list is called malnutrition, meaning this. The industrial way of growing foods is very cost effective, but it's producing things that are actually too rich in calories and too poor in nutrients. So the ratio is wrong. It's really easy to be a fat, undernourished person.
We're seeing a lot of that.
Yeah, we do.
What's the third one?
Stagnation. Movement. We humans have evolved as either hunters, which would mean walking long distances, carrying heavy objects, or even in the agricultural farmers, work hard all day long, walk a lot, move a lot, lift objects. So, of course, today we're sedentary. I spend 12 hours in an office or 10 hours in an office and 2 more hours in a car sitting, right? It's the opposite of movement. Stagnation is that which is, well, we need to overcome it by movement. And that would be walking. Well, to explain why. The lymphatic system does not have a pump. And yet all of the fluids that are in your body, other than your blood, has to be moved by movement against gravity. If you're not moving, it's stagnating. And stagnation, well, that's like a swamp.
Mm-hmm.
Putrid, rotting, not moving.
Yeah, we're seeing the consequence of that neurologically, physiologically, in every facet. Vibrational.
Well, the vibrational would be the subtle stuff. I mean, one of the things that come our way is the electromagnetic environment that we're in. It's all of it. Like even the electric current, the 60 hertz, 60 cycles per second, has frequencies in it that are affecting us. But the higher frequencies, like the wireless, the hands-free, the Bluetooth, the router, the cell phone, all of those things, especially the 5G, comes with very high frequencies. And these frequencies are actually affecting the physiology. There's this thing called voltage-gated calcium channel. Dr. Martin Pytela, P-A-L-L, did release a bunch of studies, but it's all over, where we are exposed to this electromagnetic frequency, which triggers the cell to actually release calcium. And the calcium is the signaling molecule for the fight or flight. The autonomic nervous system is regulated by the balances between calcium and magnesium. Calcium drives you into fight or flight, higher blood pressure, less digestion, faster aging, whereas the magnesium is the signaling mineral for the parasympathetic. So if you want to digest, lower your blood pressure, relax, and be feeling more peaceful, you need magnesium.
And we're all significantly deficient in magnesium. I know that. I see it.
That's the point, where our soils are quite rich in calcium and not so rich in magnesium. So unless we are supplementing the magnesium, consciously supplementing it, we'll be deficient.
This was fantastic, by the way. Thank you. What is the most practical advice you can give to our listening audience that they can turn their condition around immediately with the resources they have within their disposal?
Right. Well, if you feel like you want to get a quick response or get it quickly, we offer a test, a quiz that's on our website where you can actually get the answers next day after you fill out a questionnaire of about 120 questions.
What is the test?
It's called Advanced Metabolic Typing Test. You answer questions like, when I eat eggs for breakfast, I feel, or when I eat a bowl of cereal for breakfast, I feel. There will be differences. We just have you figure out for yourself some of the answers. And then there are some physiological questions like my shoulders are narrower than my hips, or my ears are more pink than the rest of my face, or whatever. That there are issues that are physiological. We actually answer two questions, not just what is your metabolic dominance, but also what is your endocrine dominance. And the endocrine dominance dictates the way we gain weight or lose weight, which is different. Like one person will gain weight by eating starchy things and lose weight eating fatty things, and another person will be completely opposite. And so we have now, for example, very fashionable keto diet that works awesomely well for a person who's the thyroid dominant type. But if you're the adrenal dominant, you will actually gain weight that way.
Interesting.
So that's the practical quick. Otherwise, you have to, you can go to our website. I mean, I have several lectures longer than this one.
On this subject.
On the subject where we're explaining the metabolic dominance, the endocrine dominance, and what you can do for yourself. So we either give it away for people who want to learn and just do it for themselves, or those who want to just have it done for them. We can do it that way.
Fantastic. What is your website?
It's called Life Enthusiast. life-enthusiast.com.
Where are you located?
Well, we're online, virtual. We have a warehouse of all kinds of products that we help on the nutritional side, both with the detox and nutrition and all that. And that's in Washington State.
And is that where you live? in Washington State?
No, myself, no.
No.
I'm actually in Canada, of all places.
You're in Canada. That's wonderful. Okay. I wanted to know how people could find the resources, which is through your website.
Mm-hmm.
They can contact a coach through that website and make an appointment.
Yes.
And how many coaches do you have? What's the turnaround time?
There are 4 of us on team. We're not huge.
That's wonderful.
But as far as how fast, if we get overly busy, we'll do it in groups. Right now, we're doing it one at a time because we can afford to do that.
That's wonderful. Wonderful. Quick question. We're launching our first ever Rest and Recover program for first responders. It's a data-driven, evidence-based program. It's fantastic. I'm seeing incredible results. I want to incorporate your program with our first responders. I like your approach. It's straightforward. It's clean. It's simple. It's accessible. And I'm excited to collaborate with you guys and to work with you.
Actually, I want to say one more thing on the topic of PTSD and first responders.
Please.
We also have a line of herbal products, and one of them is called Cortisol Ease. Its function is to help to dissolve the circulating cortisol quite quickly.
Really?
Mm-hmm. A lot of people who are in the PTSD state of physiology have this cortisol level. Normally, cortisol should be high in the morning and go straight line towards the evening where it's the lowest. But people with this sort of trouble end up with spiking cortisol mid-afternoon or even evening.
Yes.
And can't shut it off. So they are wired and tired and can't shut it down, or have out-of-range responses to inputs, right? Like you hear a, thunderclap and the person just jumps. Those are mostly people who have been in war zones. But whatever the load of triggers is, we're able to, by using the cortisol ease, as needed, when needed, to just drop the cortisol level down. So usually within 3 months, this has renormalized and people are just able to carry on life without the oversized reactions that they would normally experience.
Well, I want to encourage everyone to go straight to your website to take that metabolic analysis so they can get a framework of their condition. And between now and Christmas, I just want to encourage everyone listening to follow your protocol in your program. I find you clear, articulate, concise. You've simplified something that can be absolutely daunting and overwhelming. And I want to encourage us all to listen to all of Martin Pytela's lectures. I think they're accessible. I think it's doable because we can't wait for the system to fix our problems. It's just not going to come our way. We have to take charge of our own well-being.
Right. On that topic, the system is in fact created and built and geared toward maintaining.
That's right.
It is designed for treatment, not cures. And a treatment is you're dependent on a solution for life. They are not interested in actually making you right. They're only interested in having you continually using typically a pharmaceutical product that's going to alter your state just enough that you want to keep coming back for more, but not so much that you would stop coming.
That's right.
And our method is completely different. I believe in empowering people to just own their life, fix their life, and be free of all of this dependency.
And there are so many amazing, wonderful, gifted, talented people that became very, very, very sick, like you did. And they're doing amazing work. I so deeply appreciate your straightforward approach. I find myself often in murky waters and the virtue and nature of the work that I have to do. Mm. So this is refreshing on so many levels. Thank you so much, Martin.
My pleasure. Thank you.
We hope listening to this episode has brought you closer to experiencing the freedom of wholeness and healing. If you have questions or comments about today's episode, or for updates about R.E.S.T, please visit our Instagram or Facebook at The Place of R.E.S.T. If you would like more information about Virginia, or to support and join the cause of R.E.S.T, please go to theplaceofrest.com/donate or call 949-289-5935. Thank you for listening to R.E.S.T with Virginia Dixon. We'll see you next week.